All right, so the big story we've been watching in the stock market this week is artificial intelligence, AI, and the sell-off in tech stocks. We saw $300 billion in market value lost in yesterday's session with all the about the technology. And we're seeing some more selling today as we bring our friend Doug Flynn in on this from Flynn Capital Management. It's almost like the sell-off we've been waiting for, but the logic and the conversation behind it is kind of interesting, Doug, and this idea that some of the software companies like, Adobe, on and on, some of those companies, the stuff they do for businesses, turns out, you don't need an engineer. You don't need to be a rocket scientist, as they used to say, to do it. AI can do it. And then all of a sudden the selling started. Does it continue for long?
I think so. I mean, this is part of the process. You have these autonomous sort of specialized AI programs that are now replacing parts of the things that these companies are charging a lot of money for in their subscriptions as a service and other types of subscription programs. So when you're looking at the companies, you're saying, well, if there's a whole chunk of revenue that we've built into the valuations of these companies, if that's not going to be there because they don't need to spend it any longer, we can get it through these other AI programs, then perhaps those companies are not worth what we thought they were worth just a moment ago, if that revenue is no longer there, because that's what's baked into the price and the earnings of particular companies, which determines the valuation. So that's why you're seeing everybody taking a step back here from the tech area, primarily because, like, specifically the Anthropic and OpenAI have these programs that are doing this. So that's where the fears came in.
Well, I guess the larger kind of question then for people watching is it a step back from the tech area that allows people who are long-term investors to then step in, right? Buying opportunity on a drawback or a pullback, or is it kind of the air starting to come out of some sort of an AI bubble?
That's a great question. That's always the age-old question. I think certainly these companies that are charging for the service are going to have to ramp up and shift and adjust what they're offering to justify the ongoing expense. I think part of it will go away, but they're going to adapt and probably keep most of it. And so you have that initial reaction as if it's all going to be gone, but it's probably not all going to be gone. So while maybe those projections aren't going to be quite as high as we thought they were, perhaps on a pullback, that is an opportunity if you've missed a lot of this. But we're also seeing this spread out to a lot of other areas of the market. It's not just tech. Tech is actually the worst performing sector of the year. Everything is kind of moving into other areas, which we've talked about, the other downstream effects of AI going into other areas. So you're seeing that play out in the market.
One other thing I saw this morning, I thought it would be interesting. I think you're an interesting person to talk to about, well, pretty much anything, but about this in particular. There was a survey done that Gallup did about the top concerns people have, right? And you think the economy is going to be number one, and it is around the world, right? The economy comes in first. Then it's work, politics, and government safety and security. But what's funny about it, or interesting about it, is when they asked us, Americans, what's the biggest problem, the government was first. Our politics topped that. Other countries like Taiwan and others say that, but we're one of the few that say that. Most people say the economy. We say our politics. So what does it tell you?
It tells you a couple of things. Well, globally, the fact that those numbers are more than 2-to-1 focused on the economy is very telling. I think it's not just an economic crisis, it's the affordability crisis, and being able to buy a home and shelter and all that is a big problem. But I think in the U.S., it always goes back to why the rest of the world doesn't always understand us. If this country's born out of revolution against the government, I think that flows through in the culture of what we have. So it is somewhat unique in there. And yeah, I think we have a big distrust of government overall, and that's why having 50 states is better than just having one big country. It works much better for us. So I think, yeah, a distrust of government is not a terrible thing. It kind of keeps them in check, where other countries you could see that hasn't happened. But I think what's really, when you dig in here, I look at the under age 34 people, the contingent of that, and they're the ones where they're the most concerned, really. And again, it comes back down to the housing crisis and being able to just get out of their parents, or getting out of, with a stranger. It's crazy. Like in the 1970s, only 8% of the people under 34 lived at home, and that number's over 18% right now. There's a lot of people living with, even non-relatives. They just can't afford a home. And so that goes a long way to how people feel.
Yeah, no, it does. Especially like you said, younger people are feeling it more. I feel like I Gary Vee on with Cuomo last night says you have best opportunities you've ever had as a young person. Start your own business on like TikTok or something. Make your own money. Make more money
Nothing to
than you ever
lose.
made. And then you have other people who, that's not in their DNA and they don't feel that way. They don't feel as optimistic, whether it's justified or not. But that's the world we live in. Thank you, Doug. Interesting as always. Our top stories are coming up.